Imagine this: a prestigious professor, known for his sharp intellect, walks into a classroom and decides to pull a stunt that could humiliate someone. He turns to the janitor, a black woman working quietly in the back of the room, and challenges her with a complicated math problem. He's convinced she won't know the answer, thinking her job doesn't require this level of intellect. But what happens next will shock everyone. With all eyes on her, the janitor, who's used to being overlooked and underestimated, steps up to the challenge. Without a second of hesitation, she solves the math problem instantly. The entire room falls silent. The professor, who expected a laugh or an awkward moment, is left completely speechless. The students stare in disbelief, unable to understand what they just witnessed. But it doesn't end there. The professor, visibly stunned, stands frozen, struggling to process what just happened. What was supposed to be an easy way to assert his superiority backfires in an unexpected way. The tension is thick, and no one knows how this confrontation will end. Will the professor admit his mistake, or will he find a way to regain control? The story's just beginning, and the aftermath of this shocking moment is about to unfold. As the professor stands there, frozen in disbelief, the room remains eerily quiet. The students glance nervously between the two, unsure of what to say. Many of them had witnessed the professor's arrogance before, treating others like they were beneath him, particularly the janitors. It was as though they were invisible, mere background characters in his grand academic world. But this moment, this unexpected turn of events, was different. It shattered the carefully constructed image he had built for himself. The janitor, whose name was Mrs. Carter, had worked at the university for years. Most people didn't know her well. She was just a figure in the background, someone who kept the place running smoothly while others received accolades. But Mrs. Carter wasn't just any janitor. Before taking up the job, she had been an accomplished mathematician, her career cut short by personal circumstances that forced her to leave academia. The world she once navigated with ease, filled with complex equations and abstract problems, had been left behind for a more humble existence. But she never lost her sharp mind. As the professor finally regained his composure, he muttered something about a fluke, attempting to brush off the moment. But it was too late. The damage was done. The room had witnessed something that couldn't be erased, and Mrs. Carter had unknowingly flipped the power dynamic in that classroom. Now the question lingered. Would anyone dare to confront the professor about his behavior? Or would Mrs. Carter's moment of triumph remain in the shadows? As Mrs. Carter quietly walked back to her cleaning cart, the weight of the moment lingered in the air. She could feel the eyes of the students on her, some filled with curiosity, others with something that almost resembled respect. But it didn't matter. She wasn't here for their approval, and she wasn't here for the professor's arrogance either. She had a job to do, and she would do it as she always had, without drawing attention to herself. Meanwhile, the professor, Dr. Bennett, had yet to recover from the shock. His mind raced. He couldn't believe it. This woman, someone he dismissed without a second thought, had just shown him up in front of his class. It wasn't just about the math problem anymore. It was about control. He prided himself on being the authority in the room, the one who had the knowledge and the power. But that illusion had cracked in an instant. His gaze followed Mrs. Carter as she moved quietly through the room, his mind working in overdrive. How could he salvage this? How could he reassert himself? One of the students, Sarah, a quiet but sharp-eyed young woman, noticed the tension building between them. She wasn't sure what had just happened, but something about the professor's reaction felt off. Was he angry, ashamed, or was he simply embarrassed that his expectations had been so wrong? Sarah knew Dr. Bennett had a reputation for being hard on his students, often belittling anyone who didn't fit his image of intellectual superiority. But now she was starting to wonder if that same arrogance was the root of the problem. In the weeks that followed, the story of that day spread through the university like wildfire. Some students whispered about it in the hallways, marveling at Mrs. Carter's quiet brilliance. Others couldn't stop talking about the professor's obvious discomfort, though no one dared to ask him directly what had happened. But beneath it all, there was a simmering tension. The unspoken question remained: could Dr. Bennett maintain his dominance, or had this single moment revealed cracks in his armor? The tension reached its peak when, later that week, Dr. Bennett found himself face to face with Mrs. Carter again. It happened unexpectedly during a faculty meeting, a routine gathering that usually saw him standing at the front, taking charge as he always did. But this time, as he entered the room, he saw her standing quietly by the door, gathering the discarded coffee cups and papers. The sight of her caught him off guard, like a flash of lightning cutting through a stormy sky. He couldn't escape the feeling that this moment, this encounter, was where everything would either implode or be mended. As the meeting went on, Dr. Bennett couldn't focus. He could feel her presence lingering, her calm, unwavering demeanor quietly challenging him. The other faculty members talked around him, but all he could hear was the voice in his head screaming that he needed to do something. He needed to fix the damage he'd done. His grip on the table tightened as he finally stood up, interrupting the conversation. All eyes turned to him, and in that moment, Dr. Bennett knew it was now or never. "Mrs. Carter," he said, his voice surprisingly steady but full of underlying tension, "could I speak with you after the meeting? There's something I need to address." The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. No one expected this, least of all Mrs. Carter. She hesitated for a moment, looking at the professor with a mixture of curiosity and caution. But after a beat, she nodded, and the meeting continued with an air of uncertainty hanging over it. Afterwards, Dr. Bennett led her to an empty hallway, away from the prying eyes of the faculty. He felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This was it, the confrontation he had been avoiding. His reputation, his pride, everything was on the line. "I owe you an apology," he began, his voice quieter now, almost as if admitting defeat. "That day, I underestimated you, and I let my arrogance get in the way. It was wrong." For the first time in weeks, Mrs. Carter looked at him directly. Her expression was unreadable, and Dr. Bennett wondered if she would accept his apology or simply walk away. He had no idea what to expect, but he had to say it, to admit he had failed. "I don't need your apology, Dr. Bennett," Mrs. Carter replied, her voice calm but firm. "But I do appreciate you acknowledging it." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was thick, but something had shifted. The power imbalance was no longer as clear-cut as it had once been. But just as Dr. Bennett thought the tension might finally dissipate, Mrs. Carter surprised him. "You think this is just about that math problem, don't you?" she asked, her voice a little softer now, but still carrying the weight of years of experience. Dr. Bennett blinked, taken aback. "What do you mean?"